Hello there. Good afternoon. Great to see you. Um, Before I explain myself, just very quickly what the agenda is for today. I'm going to share with you 5 great mental techniques that if you use them, you literally can change your life as of today. I want to share with you one technique that if you use it, could enable you to live till 100. How about that? And it doesn't cost very much, so it doesn't. I'm going to share with you, I'm boasting now, but I'm going to be an RTE1 tomorrow morning, please God, with Sean O'Rourke. And I was asked that question, and what do you do? And even though I'm teaching you guys the stuff, I had to say to the girl, I'm going to text you back with that, so I am. So don't ever be caught, and certainly don't be caught in a live show with it. I'm going to show you how to do that. And it's a really, 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 really powerful place to be. And I want to share with you finally one great planning tool. Because I was meant to do this with you on the 1st of May, which is last Friday. So let me bring you back to that, ladies and gentlemen, last Friday. When I was in college, I got a job in Dooley's service station in University Road filling petrol. And it kept me in pints money, and it was really, really, really good. And I worked with a Connemara lad called Paddy Ridge. And Paddy Ridge was just an uberly successful guy. And I always remember one evening we were there messing about, waiting for customers to come. And those were the days you went out and you filled cars with petrol or diesel. And the biggest Mercedes we'd ever seen happened to pull into the forecourt. And Paddy was out like that to fill the car. Now, for better or for worse, it happened to coincide with a girl called Amy Lally strutting across the forecourt of Dooley service station. And now it was said that Amy Lally, when she walked down University Road, she stopped the traffic there. In fact, Pat Harold, who's listening on today and is a great Saw Doctors fan, they used to say that she was the inspiration behind that brilliant, brilliant Saw Doctors song, I Used to Love Her. In any event, what happened, Paddy, was that he took his eyes off filling the Mercedes, and unfortunately he proceeded to spill diesel all over this client's shoes. And he was, I tell you, none impressed. And I remember looking on at this and saying, Paddy now can do one of 3 things. He can pretend it didn't happen. He can blame the faulty nozzle that was actually there. And he actually did the 3rd one, which I wasn't entirely sure. Paddy said, I am so sorry for what happened. He said, I wasn't looking where I was putting the thing. He said, I am really, really sorry that those shoes are going to smell of diesel and your suit will smell of diesel. And I'll never forget, he withdrew a wallet and he took out a £5 note. That's what it was in those days. And he said to the driver, he said, I'm really sorry. There's nothing I can do about the smell of diesel. What I want you to do is I want you to go and have that suit dry cleaned. And I want you to go to Beat Green Dry Cleaners, ask for Stevie there, tell him you're a friend of mine, and he will do a brilliant job in your suit and there'll be never a smell like it again. And I'll never forget it. That man took that, and we didn't realize it at the time, but he wrote a letter to Mr. Dooley complimenting Paddy Ridge. And Paddy Ridge went on to marry Amy Lally. And Paddy Ridge now owns a series of garages in England. And the point I want to make to you, ladies and gentlemen, Paddy Ridge was aware of those 3 little words, I am responsible. So what I would like to say to you is, I am hugely sorry about screwing up last Friday. I was so excited about bringing my business international and doing my first webinar from Dubai. We had it all set up. We had it tested out. We had the webinar set up. It was all done in advance. And unfortunately, for 3 days, I tried broadcasting it and recording it and hoping I'd get it out. But unfortunately, there was a firewall on the software that prevented us using it from Dubai. We didn't know that at the time. And sure enough, I'm back in UK today and the thing is working perfectly. So sincere apologies. I don't wish to use a story to get me out of it. I do appreciate I screwed up a Friday at lunchtime for many of you. So look at, here is by and large the webinar that I was going to deliver last Friday. Let me say one thing about Dubai. I had the pleasure to visit the Al Berg Arab Hotel, which is just the 7-star hotel, one of the biggest in the world, and in my opinion, it must be one of the 8 wonders of the world. It's absolutely phenomenal. Do you know who it's run by? Do you know who it was built by? It was built by a man called Gerald Lawless. Billy Lawless, my great friend's brother from Galway City. You know the bigger industry in Dubai at the moment? It's Dubai duty free. They now fly more passengers than Heathrow do, and it is the basis of the whole Dubai economy. Do you know who Dubai duty free is run by? It's run by a man called Colin McLaughlin from Ballinasloe, County Galway. And the point I want to get at, folks, is it's only when you go away and you look at some of the wonders of the world and you see ordinary people from your own place in your own hometown and how extraordinarily they perform when they go onto a big stage. My wish for you on this Smart Edge program is that you continue to think big. And you continue to surround yourself with people who think big. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I'm told that carp, the Japanese fish, they absolutely fill the size of the tank they're put into. So if they're put into a cup or a mug, they'll stay tiny. But if they're put into a big pond, they can grow to 7, 8, 9, 10 pounds. The same is true with ourselves. Your mind and your opportunities will only expand to the degree with who you surround yourself with. It's a common theme, and we've said it on all our SMOC sessions so far, but I'd love you to continue to do that. Okay, let me bring you back to last Friday again. It was the 1st of May, and I appreciate we're 6 days into the month of May now, but I want to share with you an exercise that I learned back in 1988, once again from Dan Stamp, Head of Priority Management. And it was the exercise of planning monthly. In my opinion, it's probably one of the greatest time management tools. I'm not a great believer in daily planning because it's a little bit reactive. I'm going to talk about being proactive in a moment. Reactive, it means you're just responding. A month is a lot more proactive or strategic. It enables you to take your head up from the day-to-day whirlwind, so it does. So really great exercise, and I'd like you to do this now as you're watching the webinar. I'd like you to get a blank sheet of paper, and I'd like you to write on the top of the page, work, and midway down, personal, okay? And what I want you to do then is under both of those headings, I want you to write down in action-oriented language what would make it a great month of May 2015 for you? What would make it a great month work-wise and personally? What do I mean by action-oriented language? I want you to use verbs like hire, fire, marry, divorce. Don't be writing things down like think about or consider or discuss. The more action-oriented your language, the more likely you are to take action. Now, what's the big deal about only writing 4 or 5 down for either heading? The big deal is this is not your to-do list. This is those 4 or 5 big rocks that Stephen Covey used to talk about. So for argument's sake, in my own personal month, this month, it is to create 6 hours of videos for you guys. Now, you might say that's 6 hours, but to create 1 hour of video takes me at least 5 hours to do. So that means I got to find 30 hours. Now, it doesn't sound like an awful lot, but it takes quite a bit of organizing to fit slots of 30 hours into my diary. And that's the next thing you got to do. You got to do what the Canadians call time activate each activity. So in order for me to do my 6 hours, I've got to find 30 hours uninterrupted where I do nothing more than write my script and then record it like I'm doing now. Now, the problem is if I don't put that into my diary what's going to happen is I'm going to get busy. I was delighted, and I hope Siobhan Cunningham from SQT's looking. Got a lovely email from Siobhan while I was in Dubai, and the email worked perfectly. It was just when we went into the webinar jam app that things began to screw up. But Siobhan invited me to do 2 days work on behalf of SQT, and I loved it. But what happens is that begins to squeeze out the time I had set aside for delivery. So this is why it's really important. You don't have more than 4 to 5 activities in either section. So write down what would make it a great month for me work-wise. It's equally as important to do it for personal. I still have down here that by the 31st of May, I will have kite surfed using the kite and the board. And that for me would just be nirvana. However, in order to do that, I need to get to Lahinch for at least 3 Saturdays in May. It ain't going to happen otherwise. So it's back to time activation. It's a brilliant exercise. How long does it take to do? I did it in Dubai in less than 15 minutes. Now you think about it, you've got 720 hours in the month of May. Doesn't it make intuitive sense that you should be spending a quarter of an hour to help improve the quality of those other 720 hours? And what I'd love to do then is come back to you towards the end of May, the start of June, whatever Friday that coincides with, and ask you to review your list. And that is brilliant accountability. That takes brilliant discipline. So that for me, folks, is probably the ultimate planning tool. Monthly planning. I'd love you to do it. If you'd like, email it in to me. So you got to write down 2 things. What would make it a great month personally and work-wise? Write it down in action-oriented language. And then finally, write the date when you're actually going to take action on it. And where is it gone on me? When you have that done, you time activate it. In other words, you put it into your diary. I find the mobile phone brilliant. So you will find in my diary that we have about 6 sessions of 5 hours where I actually do nothing but create video. But if that ain't getting into the diary, it ain't going to happen, so it's not. So it's a great exercise. Maybe send them in to me. If you're really into your accountability, that ups the ante, so it does, because you're going public on it. Okay, let's go back, because this video isn't live today because you weren't aware of it last Friday as it was meant to be. I normally ask you for victories. And a victory I got last week was Noel Kelly, one of our great smoothies, and he talked about a story I told about Dan Stamp. And back in 1988, Dan Stamp was president of Priority Management, one of the biggest management consultancy firms in the world, still is, and Dan is still CEO. And Dan had a soft spot for Irish people. And I went over there as a young 26-year-old trainee, and we got on like a house on fire. He took me to his family, he took me to barbecues, and I was hugely privileged that when we flew from Vancouver to Quebec for the Priority Management Worldwide Conference, I got to sit beside Dan on the plane. It was a huge honor. He thought it was great, and I thought it was brilliant. And we were barely seated, swear to God. We sat down, and Dan presses the bing bong button, looking for attention. And you could see 2 hostesses, and they were kind of dismissing and ignoring it. And he continued to bing bong, and this lady arrived down, and she wasn't particularly pleased with this. And Dan said, could we have 2 common cards, please? And she said, I'm very sorry, sir. We don't give out the common cards till the end of the flight. It's there to record. No, Dan said, please. He said, I fly all over the world. I'd like to get 2 common cards now. And she wasn't at all impressed. And she went back up, and she had a little natter with the other 2 or 3 hostesses there. And just before takeoff, she comes down with the 2 common cards. And Dan said, I want you to follow exactly what I do here. And I want you to write down exactly what I do. And he gave them star ratings. So if it was from 1 to 5 for customer satisfaction, he put down 5. For flight comfort, 5. Everything was 5. Then he got to the qualitative bits. And I saw him writing down, and I think the girl's name was Cheryl. He said, Cheryl was so attentive. She was so responsive. I fly all over the world. And I would love to have staff like Cheryl. And he just went on in glowing terms about what a superb flight it was. And we hadn't even taken off, and he presses the big button again. And the hostess comes down and she looks at the 2 cards that we filled in. And she sits up, and herself and her buddies, they actually have a look at it and they kind of smiled. Anyway, the flight took off, and we were about 10-15 minutes airborne when the pilot switched off the safety bell sign. And Cheryl arrived down and she said, "Captain says, would you like to join him in first class?" I never forget it. What had Dan actually done? Dan had actually prejudged the expectation. He had set up an expectancy that this was going to be a brilliant flight. Absolutely wonderful way to think. And I didn't exactly do that on the way out to Dubai, but I took the opportunity to talk to the hostess. And there was a girl there called Diamante. And I know it sounds, that's what I was checking her name. And I said, am I spelling it right? And I got to talk about her. And we discovered she was actually from Lithuania. And we had a big chat. And anyway, the flight went on at 7.5 hours. And I fell asleep towards the end of it. And it was an amazing thing. Just as we were about to descend, she arrives down to me with a bag. And she said, she said, it's hard to get alcohol over in Dubai. Take these with you, but make sure nobody sees you. Put them into your hold-all bag. And there were 8 bottles of wine and 8 little half cans of Budweiser. And that for me was a great victory, because once again, it was what I learned from Dan Stamp. If you are interested in people, it's amazing what you'll get back. It really, really is. And one of the things I always talk about is be interested rather than being interesting. Be interested in other people, and it's really, really powerful. Okay, let's talk about the difference between mental laws and man-made laws. A man-made law is, thinking about planes again in last week, would cabin crew please return to their seats? Would you put on your safety belt? Would you observe the no smoking signs? A whole series of man-made rules, and they're good. But I tell you what, you can kind of break them sometimes and get away with them. I forgot to fasten my seatbelt at one stage, and I got away with it. Nothing happened. I probably was drinking in places in Dubai I shouldn't have been drinking in, but you know what? I got away with it. Now, the difference is there are man-made laws, but there are also natural laws. And the funny thing about natural laws is if you violate those, you get caught every single time. But if you abide by them, they're absolutely superbly powerful. And I want to share with you 5 natural or mental laws that can really help you with your life. And the first one is what I call the law of proactivity. And proactive derives from the Latin word, 2 words, action is 1 and pro is 4. So proactive, it's a really, 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 really powerful word. Next time you're stressed, I suggest you do 2 things. 1, you either take action on it to remedy it, or 2, you decide to walk away completely. Now, just for example's sake, last Friday and Saturday, and indeed Monday, I tried to take action with the webinar. And poor old Jenny Ryan did her absolute damnedest in Limerick, and we tried everything. And she was getting it working perfectly in Limerick. It was just when I went to Dubai, it didn't work. So that was Friday. I also took action on the Saturday, where I got the IT people in the hotel to sit down and do it with me. And the same crack, it would kick off just before we went. And on Monday, I got another friend of my daughter's who was really, really good at technology, and she couldn't do it either. But you know what I did? I decided on Monday, and I knew some of you were very disappointed. I decided to walk away from it, and I was going to do nothing more about it until Wednesday, i.e. today, when I got back to Ireland and I could do something about it. So proactive, 2 choices. Either take action on those things that stress you, or decide to absolutely walk away from them. Both are very proactive choices. The second mental law is the law of cause and effect. I always love that expression from the Bible. What you sow is what you reap. That's so true. Earl Nightingale said that in that great article I talked to you about the very first day of the Smoked Edge. You know, if you sow corn, you will always get corn. You won't get barley, you won't get wheat, you always get corn. It's an inviolable natural law. Similarly, I think he calls it rapeseed. If you sow rapeseed, which is poisonous, that's exactly what you're going to get. So if you're concerned about the results in your life, I would suggest think of the law of cause and effect. What are the thoughts you are planting in your mind? It takes a wee bit of smoth and discipline to actually sit those down and figure out, what are the thoughts that I want to have? And you know what? Once again, I keep going back to Friday. I got hugely depressed because I got it wrong and it wasn't working. And I knew I had my daughter and my wife were with me, and I was upset, and of course I was. And one of the affirmations I've developed is, and I love it, and it's, I intend to feel great. And even though it was the last thing in my mind, I began to say that over and over again. I intend to feel great. This is before I went out to dinner after the thing screwed up. Although it was meant to be at 1 o'clock, that would have been 3, 4 or 5 Dubai time. I intend to feel great. It's a really great affirmation. So that is the law of cause and effect. The third mental law is the law of belief. We talked to you last week about Napoleon Hill. Chapter 2 was on faith. If you believe you are going to succeed, you absolutely enhance your chances. If you believe that you're going to fail or it's going to be difficult, you will also fail. Belief, is really, really, really powerful. And that is, I think, the law of faith. It's a really powerful word, yeah? In the Bible, it says, if you can have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can achieve great things. Okay, number 4 is the law of attraction. And the law of attraction says that, I suppose in Connemara, if you see me looking across, I'm in Clare today broadcasting, and if I look across at the hills, the 12 pins, in Connemara they have a great expression, Anion Kiro Kiro Gela. It literally translated, it means one slug recognizes another slug. In practical terms, what it's actually saying is that like attracts like. Like attracts like. Wealthy people attract wealthy people. And you know what? Poor people attract poor people. Like attracts like. So one, you got to get clear. What are the things you would like? What are your burning desires? We called them last week. And then get around other people who have similar burning desires. Law of attraction works every single place you're aware of. It really, really does. And the 5th mental law I want to talk to you about today is the law of expectancy, or the law of expectation. You know, there's 4 or 5 sources for all of the expectancies and expectations in your life. And it started off with your parents. Your parents had certain expectations from you. And you know what? You fulfilled a lot of those pretty closely. And that's the wonderful thing about great parents. They expect great things from their kids. They expect their kids, when they go out for the night, they're going to be safe, and the kids are always safe. They expect their kids to get great jobs, and hey presto, the kids get great jobs. Okay, that's the positive side of positive parental expectation. Let me share with you the negative side. They did a survey of kids who ended up in prison. And you know, 90% of those kids were told at some stage and many stages by their parents, you know, if you don't cop on, someday you'll end up in prison. Now listen to that. That was the expectation of their parents. It was programmed into their heads. Very, very important. Now you might be saying, yeah, but I had really negative parents. You know what I like to I'll tell you one thing you can do. You can be hugely positive to your own kids. Begin to start affirming them. Begin to start affirming their talents. They could be absolutely useless at everything, but find the 1 or 2 or 3 things they're excellent at and keep affirming them, and watch their courage and their confidence and their charisma build. It's absolutely super. That's the first area your expectations were formed. The second was your teachers. I'm thinking of our great Patricia O'Donnell. Absolutely super lady on this program. Patricia began life as a teacher. Pádraig Ó Céide is a teacher. Pat McDonough is a teacher. Ronnie O'Gorman is a teacher. Joe Schmidt is a teacher. Graham Henry is a teacher. All the great, great leaders, they're great teachers. Now, you were extremely lucky if you had a good teacher or two or three or four. And you could have been extremely unlucky if you had bad teachers. The point is, get around good teachers. Get good teachers for your employees, for your kids, but most of all yourself. Third area where your expectations are shaped, are formed, are those expectations the expectations of your boss. Bosses are people who have huge influence over us. You might often hear me talking about Dan Stamp. I've talked about him twice already today. Sandy Dunlop. These were people who had huge influence on me. And once again, you're steep lucky if you can get that. Find great people to work with. It's really important. Now, the other two are the expectations you have of your employees and of your family. Sometimes we have very low expectations. And I guess if you do, you'll have poor results. And the final one and most important expectation to have is, what do you expect of yourself? What do you expect of yourself? Write it down. Don't wait for this webinar to end. I expect to be or do or have. Write it down and feel the surge of power within you. So those folks are 5 brilliant mental beliefs. Now, let me give you the health one for today. We talked about lemon juice. We talked to you about apple cider vinegar. And I've heard you, Alison, you hate taking it. Knock it down the hatch. It's the only way to do it. It's super for your skin. It's super for your indigestion and digestion. And it's super to keep you young looking and vital. Today, I want to quote a great GP we had on Smok last year, Dr. Deelish Clare. And Deelish once said, I'll never forget it, and some of you were at it, she said, if you want to live to a great age, eat 5 vegetables a day. However, if you want to live to 100, eat 10 vegetables a day. I remember saying, Deelish, you couldn't eat 10 vegetables a day. Yes, you can. There are creative ways of doing it. One of the best, and I've begun to do it myself, is soup. You can put 4, 5, 6, 7 different, and different colors are really good. Absolutely brilliant. You can have soup every single day. Coming into summertime, you can have brilliant salads. You can have red peppers, green peppers, rocket, lettuce, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, beetroot, any amount of colors in salad. You can do it in a stir fry. I had loads of stir fries in Dubai, and you get your 4 or 5 vegetables. What a simple choice to be able to make. Forget about your drugs. Forget about all of that stuff. Get on to 5 vegetables a day. And a great offer. I forgot to mention it last week. We mentioned it on the live seminar in Galway. Great guy. He's on our program here, Dr. Pat Harold from Nina. Harry is probably one of the best doctors I know. I was in college with him. I went to him when I had my own illness, and he was absolutely outstanding. And I've asked Pat, would he put together an executive screening for people in Smoctedge and to do a really good deal? And he's done that. And what I would suggest is, it's a brilliant thing to do. Get your body checked out. It's probably the most important asset you have. Pat's based in Nina. He will do wonderful value. It's no big deal. He'll do a little bit of telephone work with you in advance. He'll meet you. He'll do your bloods, and he'll do the various diagnostic tests. He'll have those examined, and then he'll meet with you to tailor a medical plan for the rest of your life. He'll do it for as little as 247 quid. Now, I think that is a brilliant investment in you, your family, and your business. So if you want to come back to me, and I'll put you in contact with Pat. I won't know a thing about it, but it's an absolutely brilliant way of doing it. Okay, I've promised to try to keep these webinars to about 30 minutes, so we're coming to the end of it. But I want to introduce you to 6 buddies of mine, and I talk about them in almost every webinar and seminar that I ever do, and they're called the Kipling 6. And Rudyard Kipling once said, he said, I kept 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when, where and how and who. Once again, I kept 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when, where and how and who. Now you can use them for strategic planning, for project management, for writing, for presentation skills. Today, I want you to use a version of the Kipling 6 for your elevator pitch. So who are you? So in my case, it's I, or Pádraig Ó Máille, or Smough. So that's the who. What do I do? I teach. Who do I teach? I teach busy people. They're people like yourself, or ambitious people. What do I teach them? It's all back to the Kipling 6 again. I teach them the mindset of discipline, or Smough. And the final one is so what, or in order that you look better, feel better, think better, perform better, and earn better. So I teach busy people the mindset of Smough in order that they look better, feel better, think better, earn better, perform better. That's a one line. It's what the Americans call an elevator pitch. I can't tell you the amount of times I said that in Dubai in the last week. When people say, what is it that you do? Instead of saying I'm a motivational speaker, or I'm a management consultant, or I'm a writer, or an author, if you give them the I, what it is that you do, the feature of it. So I teach discipline, or a mindset of discipline, but that in itself is no good. The final one are the benefits, that you feel better, that you look better. Once again, I wish you every success with your week. Please get back to me with your monthly plan. I hope that, and I wish that you look better and feel better and perform better and think better, and very importantly, that you earn better. If you get a chance, I'm on Sean O'Rourke, RTE1, tomorrow morning at about 20 to 11. This is Pádraig Ó Máille wishing you a very good day, and I will talk to you again this Friday at 1 o'clock live. Nice to talk with you.